This evening, we've got an exciting topic to explore. Thank you, experts, at the table from us, for being here this evening. We're going to just go ahead and jump in. I don't know if you want to do introductions first, but we've got some long-range facility plans to talk about.
We do. So I'm going to kick everything off and then pass it to people that we've been working with for a long time in this district. But Erin's right. Exciting night tonight. This is the culmination of almost a year's worth of work from members of our Capital Facility Advisory Committee, many of which are in the audience tonight. Thanks for being here and like true to the end, right? You're here, so we've got this. But we just want to get started talking about the long-range capital facility plan and some of the recommendations you're going to see tonight. They all support our future ready strategic plan so that we can make sure that we know, value, and support every student. So everything that was discussed, we started every meeting with our promise because this is a promise that we made to not just every student, but their families, and providing great facilities that are innovative, up to date, where the roof doesn't leak and the ceilings don't leak, helps us fulfill this promise. And that's really why we're so grateful to members of the Capital Facility Advisory Committee, because they helped us put this recommendation together for you. So here's your purpose tonight and your non-purpose. Your purpose really is, or our purpose is, we're going to discuss specific projects and we're going to go through them one by one. And we're going to discuss costs and a new concept for this district, a bond oversight committee. But here's what we're not going to do tonight. So I don't want you to get wrapped around this axle. We're not going to take any action, and we're not going to discuss election timing or real detailed funding measures. We're not going to go into any of that because really we don't know what you're going to want to do and how you're going to want to proceed. So that's information that we'll bring back. But here's the purpose. That's the non-purpose. So if we can keep that lens in our view, that'll help us get through the information tonight, because this is kind of a big bite. Okay. All right. I'm going to hand it over to Marina.
And thank you, Lori. To build on that, your job tonight is think about what additional information you need to fully be able to consider this recommendation. You're gonna hear a lot about projects and different things, but is there something more you need to have on your plate to understand fully? And then also we want to, our purpose is to help you understand why CFAC thinks that this is the best recommendation. You know, it was a long process. It was, at this point, over a year. We started March 27th.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a day that I remember. So it's over a year. And so there's a lot of work and a lot of time. So we want to make sure that you understand fully why this is the recommendation of the committee. So hope I do this right. Okay, a little background, and I think we've covered this before. We've talked about this is in October of 2021. We asked for approval of the capital facilities plan, which was 2021 to 2027. So we're kind of in the middle of that time frame, but you know, that was when we had that plan to you for approval. At that time, we also wanted to retain Matt so that we could do some future site planning and do the appropriate research and feasibility with those sites to fully understand what we need to know with those. And we wanted the administration to be allowed to organize this CFAC committee to study, understand the plan, look at the needs, the data, and bring us to where we are today with a recommendation to the board for a potential bond. So our committee leadership, we have the fabulous Penny Maybe as our facilitator. Yay! She's done such good work. It was a no-brainer. We have Matt and Kyle McLeod from Hainline, and myself. And then we had some outside experts. Shannon Bingham is our demographer. We heard a lot from Shannon and a lot of numbers from Shannon. I love spreadsheets and numbers, so that was good. And then Mark Pressing, I think, has been before the board before talking about finances and bond financing. So those are the people that were integral to moving the process along. our committee itself, we formed the committee in March, as I said, March 27th, our first meeting. We had about 30 volunteers that were part of the process, probably anywhere from 25 to 30 at each meeting. And you can see that we were pretty split between the regions, the municipalities, district people. You know, we had a wide range of people, and these meetings occurred monthly except for July and August. So it's been a good 10 months of work. And all of our meetings were in person. We do have this website that we put up there just for people's reference if you want to look further into the meetings. And here are the names of our members of our committee. And not going to read all of them, but we appreciate each person that was part of this process. So the goals of the CPAC were, as said before, to make recommendations for a long-term capital facilities plan that includes the funding measures, and to study the facility needs, all of the data relating to enrollment and demography, you know, what our projections were for the future, et cetera, and then design a plan that's to meet students' needs over the next 10 years. So those are our goals. And background need, this should be pretty self-evident, but that's why you bring in the experts, because we can say that enrollment is growing. That doesn't mean we understand how it's growing or where it's growing. We can say buildings are over capacity, but we need for people to understand capacity. So those are some of the needs, the things that are the background. And then obviously even though all of our buildings are in really, really good condition, we do have buildings that have needs for replacement or upgrades, those kinds of things. So that was part of that. So part of proving those things was the demographic information. And this chart, if you can't do the math like that, it shows a 16% growth in enrollment over these 10 years from 2024 to 2033. That's 1,680 students. That's like adding almost the population of Sumner High School to our district, but spreading that around. So that is a large, impactful number over those years. And even though they don't necessarily all, you know, you see some change in fluctuation in the rate of growth, we continue to steadily grow. Houses are being built every time we turn around and people are moving in. So what does that do to our buildings? Well, I like this chart because it really graphically shows how full our buildings are. You look at Bonnie Lake High School in particular, 129%. And that's a building where we don't have a lot of portables. We just added 3 portables. And so you can see that building is bursting at the seams. Bringing up portables, I do want to mention, we have 69,000 square feet of portables in our district. Not all of those are filled with students. We have ECAP, we have childcare, we have Head Start, a family center, we have the athletics portable, but we do have a significant number of portables, and that helps ease in some areas, but it doesn't meet the need of the building or the capacity needs. So, so these numbers are very true, and it is also how the state views our buildings and our numbers. So I'm gonna pass it on to Penny.
Thank you. Oh boy. Now I have to figure it out.
Press the right button. So you can stay there for a minute.
Right button.
I can press them, go back. I can
Go back.
press it for you if you
Yeah,
want.
yeah, I love that. I can facilitate people, but technology, yeah, not so much. So our process was pretty straightforward. The first, I would say 3 meetings, we did a lot of education because we wanted the committee members to understand how's enrollment figured out. What does it mean when we say we're growing? What does it mean when we say our buildings are in good condition, but they're aging? We need to do some work on them. So, and understanding the methodology behind that is really important when it comes to, in my experience, when it comes to people being able to say, okay, let's weigh some of these needs and look at what's critical, what's, you know, what's getting solved, what's the best way to do it. It was a little frustrating for the committee members, 3 months of learning. They were very, very glad by the third meeting when we actually started to move into developing guiding principles and also starting to share some potential projects. So we did that right before the summer break. And then after the summer break, they developed their guiding principles, which were intended to help them as they looked at potential projects and the needs and so forth. Have a way to weigh them against each other and make sure that they were meeting all of these principles that they felt from what they knew from community members and friends and fellows and so forth, and from the district folks, what was important, what was the most important for this capital facilities plan. So then starting in September and through until December, the committee looked at projects at the, potential projects at the high school level, at the middle school level, elementary school level, other projects as well. So we divided those into, different sections in the months. And then in December, we started saying, okay, what does this look like to you? What do you, you've heard about a whole bunch of projects, you've learned about them, you've looked at all the dollar amounts. Now it's time to start thinking about, well, how are you going to prioritize this? So we came back in January, and in January and February, there was a lot of dialogue and deliberation. We had the committee work in small groups and come up with their proposals, compared them all and discovered there wasn't huge differences, but there were notable differences, and spent a couple of meetings. We even extended the length of them a little bit for this dialogue and deliberation, and walked away from the second one saying, we seem far away. And the team was like, we gotta do something. I'm like, be patient, it's gonna work, it's gonna work. And by the third meeting, when we did this consensus workshop, they came up with their recommendations that they really truly felt met their guiding principles and were the best for the district. And we walked out of that meeting with 100% consensus from every member of the committee saying, yes, these are the recommendations that we want to propose. So yeah, you can go on to the next one. So here, just a quick glance at the guiding principles, because once they had their recommendations, they then went back and compared them. And you'll see that in a future slide here. So when they did the recommendations, they said, we need to respond to the capacity needs, these do that. We need to reduce overcrowding, these do that. Resolve significant traffic and queuing issues, expanding turf fields, not all, but some for year-round use, and ensuring compliance with American Disabilities Act, and also the energy efficiency things that were also coming down the road. So the committee really felt that this package that they were proposing did all of that. And their rationale, because as they came to this package, I really wanted them to be able to say why, and for the community to know why this package. What is it about what the needs are at the district that caused them to say, this is what we recommend? And so there you have their rationale. It's uniting, it crosses the entire district. It not only meets current needs, but allows flexibility for the future. Aligns, as Lori said, every meeting we started with the future ready goals. And so this aligned with that. Held your high standards, which you're well known for, and they felt that this met that. Acknowledged that a great district requires supported facilities for all, and gave the district the opportunity to improve facilities in the proper sequence, giving flexibility to the district in when to do the projects and how to do them. And then they, again, compared them to their guiding principles. And every one of their guiding principles is reflected up here. Data-driven focus, transparency, requiring open communications with the community, supporting diverse needs across the district, responding to community expectations. Every meeting we started saying, what are you hearing? Who are you talking to? What are you hearing about things? And that helped them inform their discussions. Equitable access by ensuring ADA compliance. And then funding. Funding was a big issue. What's affordable, what's right for the community, and this package, the committee felt did a level and predictable tax rate over several years, which means there's not going to be any uncertainty about what will happen. And then also, building new stuff creates jobs, which is never a bad thing. So if you look at this map, you can see that the projects that are recommended are really spread all over the district. And that was one of the big key things that the committee was focused on was equity in terms of who needs services where, equitable access to services, education services and facilities, and also geographic equity. So with that, I'm gonna let the construction guys talk about projects.
Thank you, Patty. So the first project we'll look at is the Bonnie Lake High School expansion. So as part of this project, before we took it to the committee, we looked at 4 possible places to expand that high school. It's a very tight site. We looked at these different scenarios and how we could make the safest campus for all the students. And what we really came down to was what you see, the big dark blue circle on the bottom, which is kind of an expansion right off the front that creates a new welcoming addition. And then it also adds the turf fields. And so that's about a $76 million project, but it adds 10 classrooms, which would add a flexibility for science classrooms, gen ed classrooms, new office, and kind of new wayfinding that allows people to kind of see this as the front of the school.
Right, also helps reconfigure the current admin area into like potentially ROTC or other uses, so it optimizes that, and also optimizes that sort of inefficient parking circle in the front of Bonnie Lake and gives it a new face, so kind of modernize the face.
And also with this, we would probably have to do something with the intersection at the middle school, high school, so that's included in the price of this.
Right, as a traffic mitigation. The master plan, everyone's familiar with it. If we go to this next slide with the footprint, you know, it's gonna have to be phased because we're gonna keep the school active, but you've got the west wing on the left side, on the Wood Avenue side, the middle, which is the admin, the arts, and the sports facilities, indoor sports facilities, and then the multi-use field to the northeast there. I think you guys are all familiar with this project. All I'll say is questions came up during CFAC, like, can we do this instead of that? Can we do that instead of this? And we sort of ran into all the same roadblocks that we hit with the task force way back when, where it's like, given the tightness of the site and the need to phase it and keep the school open and stormwater constraints and other constraints, this really is the most efficient way to build that site out. So it stayed as it was.
So the next project was a new middle school in the Tahale area. And so, as you guys are aware, we're looking at acquired property in Tahale. So we worked on the design of a middle school out there. And so this project is probably the second largest project in the whole package of things. But this would allow us to alleviate the middle school overcrowding. It would take some work to kind of mitigate that across the district in the middle school level.
And we were working with the developer this whole time. They rearranged the intersection to make easy parent access, agreed to a bunch of things to allow better bus access and queuing. So they've been very supportive and responsive throughout the process. But no, go back there, yeah. So a lot of people don't know where, so you can see the upper 2 bullets are Donald Eisman on the right and Tahale Heights Elementary on the left. So this area is just woods right now. It's down past the DR Horton development. So you could go there, but you'd just be looking at trees.
And turf lighted fields.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you have the picture, that's right.
So I heard there's a question of like, why isn't there more investment into Crestwood and Liberty Ridge? And the fact is the bones of these buildings are really good. And they're both basically identical and built at about the same time roughly. But the siding, the interiors, the teaching walls, all those need upgrades. So if you think about the way our Mountain View work on the exterior and interior really changed that building. It's hard to even imagine that school the way it was before we finished it. It's like a totally different feel now. So it'd basically be the same treatment at Crestwood and Liberty Ridge. Total inside revamp, teaching walls, new siding, just it would look very modernized and freshened up, basically.
So another recommendation was to add 8 permanent classrooms at the Tahale Heights Elementary. As you guys might be aware, we've got 8 portables going in there. Will be open next week. So this adds on to the existing building where it was designed for in the back, but it's a larger cost because it's going to be all new foundation and everything all the way up, but it would add permanent classroom space instead of portables. Daffodil Valley Field. So we're looking at doing this in an all-new synthetic turf lighted field. Allows year-round playability and reduced maintenance for the district. Same thing at Donald Wiseman. We explored a lot of different opportunities here, but same lighted field, turf, reduced maintenance, year-round playability. And then also at Donald Wiseman is to reconfigure the queuing and add some additional parking to the front of the school to help alleviate some of the traffic circulation issues that they currently experience.
And then at Lake Ridge, I've been studying this for longer than I'd like to. We have this preliminary design for what I call the bowl there. It's this big grass field right off of the road. To basically bring all of the queuing off of Myers and bring them onto the site, queue and park more people. The cost of this project is sort of on the very conservative side because there's a lot of stormwater components to this that we've been exploring and are still unknown. So I can see the cost of this coming down quite substantially, but we wanted to be safer, on the safer side, just in case there was a huge stormwater detention requirement.
And then one of the last projects here is the energy efficiency measures for the clean building stuff across the district. So continue on the LED conversions and those things throughout the district. You have a lot more information on that. If you want to share anything.
We haven't fully identified all the projects that would be part of the energy efficiency measures, but I can tell you we have a number of buildings that exceed the targets and that we cannot submit for compliance at this point. So no matter what, we're going to have to take some action to bring those buildings within compliance and to keep them in compliance. And so this will allow us to appropriately target specific efficiency measures that are designed for those spaces to bring those buildings into their target area. So, look at this. I know it's a little hard to read the slide, but this has the total cost of all the projects put together. I do want to say that when it comes to costs, I'm probably worse than anybody on the team, because it was even this week, I'm saying, Pat, can we just double check the numbers one more time? I just want to make sure that we're not missing anything. This has been a very volatile time. When you think about what's happened since the last bond that we passed in 2016, and even since the bond that was unsuccessful that we ran in 2020, our whole world and economy has changed. And where you see it the most, and it's the most tangible for us in this room, is construction. Construction costs have changed and sourcing materials has changed. And so that's reflected in these costs. They've been vetted 3 times, maybe 4, to make sure that we have taken into account all of the, the timing of what could be accomplished and what the cost escalations might be over that time period. Because the last thing any of us want to do is endorse something and put something out there to the voter and then say, we didn't know this was going to happen. So we've been very careful with this number.
And Marina, these are escalated numbers, right?
They are escalated numbers. So there's a lot that is included in the recommendation, but there are projects that are not included, that were not put forth for various reasons. A number of them are things that we probably could figure out ways to do on our own, do them as projects in district, maybe do them, find alternative solutions for them, looking like at stadium security and improvements to the weight room, things like that. And there are other ones that they just didn't fit with the recommendation or the opinions and the motives and the goals of the committee. So these are those projects that are not included in the projects. And then my favorite slide is the bond oversight committee. I love this idea. I think from the top down, we are about transparency and accountability. And so I think it's a brilliant idea. And there are some wonderful people that have been part of this committee that I've really enjoyed getting to know. And I would love the opportunity to put these kind of people, have them in this environment as well, to be part of a bond oversight committee to see what we're doing, why we're doing it, and keep both the board and the public apprised of what the district's doing and why. I think it is a really great measure, so I'm really excited that this is something that came out of that process that we could adopt in this district. And now I come to the good part, questions. Turn it over to you.
Any questions jump out at anyone right off?
Yeah, could you describe the bond oversight committee a little bit more? You know, how big, how often does it meet, that kind of stuff?
Well, I would love to say that I was in charge of doing all of that stuff and that I could just wave my magic wand and set all the rules. But that's something that we would obviously work with the board, work with Lori, just to guide that process. We have a process in the district for committees and things like that, so we'd use that process. There would be an application process. We would look, I would think, for a balanced committee that represents different demographics of the district. Hopefully people that have some knowledge in the industry so that they understand what they're looking at or what we're bringing to them. But I really think it's a great idea and something that I look forward to working with the board and Lori to design and put into place.
I feel like quarterly might be the right pace, just my instinct, given the length of the bond and the, you know, the pace at which it'll move, seems like the right, you know, cadence.
Most districts, this committee is it's a little smaller than our CFAC committee. It provides actual like reports to the board on how projects are going, what the progress is. And Matt's right, maybe quarterly, we can decide much of this together because this will be a brand new oversight committee for the district, but we think it's an important layer that when we do pass this bond, the committee got that it was very important that the district be held accountable to making sure that those taxpayer dollars are used appropriately. And hey, how are things going? So a lot of it, Paul, we'd have to figure out together, but it's definitely not uncommon. Districts across the state have this. So, I mean, generally what I do is I go look for the best district and I talk to their superintendent and we steal a lot of ideas. So, yeah.
I like it, especially since it can prevent job creep.
Oh, sure. Oh,
Mission
yeah.
creep,
Yeah.
where all of a sudden the project now is
Yeah.
overblown from where it was originally conceptualized, and then that's where you have problems. So I like this idea of, you know, somebody there more often than a bunch of board members, really asking tough questions and keeping the mission on track. I know you do a good job, Marina, but you came in about halfway through a lot of these construction
Yes.
projects that have been,
But I've learned a lot.
I know you've done.
I have learned a lot. Scope creep are two words that I hate more than any other words on the planet. And I've had some good discussions recently with different firms about, you know, philosophy and the things that you can control in a process and the things that you can't. So, you know, there is a way to manage those things.
So, and Paul, you know, sometimes, and Kyle and Matt could speak to this better than I could, but sometimes construction projects have unexpected presence.
Absolutely.
Right, and unexpected problems that you can then discuss with the committee. So then when something does go wrong, they understand the genesis and where, like what happened, so that they don't.
Right. And
yeah.
you know, Mountain View is a really good illustration. When you do a modernization or you work on an expansion or you work on an existing building, you only know what you know until you open up that wall. You may not know what's behind that wall. And, you know, we did a very good job and had contingencies set in place and we're very prudent with the management of what we found when we opened the walls at Mountain View. And I think we did I'm very proud of that project because we took care of a problem before it became a bigger problem. But yeah, Lori's right. You know, with that, you can communicate on a deeper, more in-depth level than you can in a board meeting. And then, you know, it's an added layer of accountability.
Well, the fact is this bond is the size of a mid-sized company, so it needs oversight.
Yes.
Thanks, I like it.
Other questions?
On you. No, I just want to say thank you to the committee members that participated. It's always nice to have the community involved because you get so many different perspectives and ideas and people to talk to people and bring it. And having attended some of the meetings, I saw, you know, the hard work that was put into this, recommendation. And so having seen some of that, and listened in on some of that process, I don't have a ton of questions about what we've seen here because it's well put together. I think the committee did a phenomenal job balancing. I mean, it was, as you put up the list of things that didn't make the cut, I mean, it was some tough decisions that they had to make. And I think this represents a very good balance of what's absolutely needed right away. I mean, my daughter texted me the other day and said, Dad, the roof is leaking. The high school, do something about it. Okay, I'll work on that.
Yeah,
But-
thanks, honey.
Yeah, so this bond is important. I think there's a lot of things that, like you said, there's a lot of good buildings, but there's some things that need to be updated. And I mean, Sumner High School is exactly the same as when I attended it a long time ago.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kevin. You trained me, right?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I have two more questions.
Yeah.
Those are pretty easy ones, I think. For the size of the new middle school, I didn't see a student number on there. Do they have is it gonna be around 700, 650?
That hasn't fully been determined. I think that when we started the process, we had some thoughts about what we thought the capacity of the middle school should be. And I think in working through the process and looking at the numbers and learning along with the committee, there's room to refine that. So that's, it hasn't been totally defined, but that's something that can be, done in the process. of this number gets you, about anywhere from 800 to a 1,200 capacity, or a little below.
1,200 is the max, would be a supersized middle school, but the fact is whether it's 800 or 1,200, it's the same size baseball field, same size
Right.
soccer field, same size bus drop off, parent queuing similar, so.
Stormwater's the same.
Yeah, sewer, all
all
that
of
stuff's the same, it's really just a building shell that changes, but even within the building, you still have the commons of the kitchen and all, all the admins.
Yeah,
And that for the 200?
yes.
Okay.
Is that 2-story or 3-story?
As it is right now, it's a 3-story, to fit on that site.
Yeah, that's part of why we do the feasibility, because a site, they're not cookie cutters, they're not square, they're not flat. And so when you think about all the things that we have to put on a site, you really have to do some homework to make sure you can fit everything. And so that's why things are placed and shaped the way they are to adapt to the needs of the site.
I mean, so Paul, what are your thoughts on that? Would you rather see it built bigger or to size?
I'll always like bigger, but I know we run into problems when the state says, hey, you can only build it for your capacity that you have now. And then by the time you open it up, you're already over capacity. So I know when we built to Holly Heights Elementary, we purposely built that so that it could be added on. And you can see that, hey, we're adding on, and it's only $18 million. And hopefully there won't be a whole lot of destruction when they're adding that on. I mean,
No, they
the
won't.
school will continue. And so I know that that's the kind of planning you guys are gonna do.
Absolutely.
Where, maybe in the future you'll get to 1,200, but you might have to do the 800 right now and make it so that you can have an easy access point to extend the building. So, yeah, I mean, I think everybody wants it bigger.
Bigger?
Because even when you build it bigger, by the time you open it, it's at capacity. And then, does anyone else have another question, or can I go on to my?
Please,
last
go ahead.
question? And it just comes back to Crestwood and Liberty Ridge. I see just shy of 3 million. And I asked Lori about this. It was the state match. I know that it's never a guarantee, and we don't ever really know what we're gonna get. So is the 3 million would be bond money, but it's open potentially for some more state match?
So here's the thing. To get the state match in the situation that we're in right now, because they haven't revamped it yet, thank goodness. You have to spend money to get money.
Yeah.
You need to build to a certain size project to get the matching funds that you might be eligible for. Liberty Ridge and Crestwood, and I'm very attached to them because Liberty Ridge is my neighborhood school. My kids went there. It is a very well-built building. It is a very well-designed and well-functioning building. Crestwood and Liberty Ridge are the most efficient buildings that we have in this district. They are 20 points below the target for energy consumption. They're very efficient. The things that are frustrating with Liberty Ridge, for me, are the exterior above the brick has to be maintained more frequently. It diminishes over time. It can allow water intrusion. So that's something would love to correct. We have exterior doors in all the classrooms. And once upon a time, that was a great way to operate. And that's not how we operate anymore. We don't want exterior doors at every classroom. When that building was designed, we didn't have the security concerns that we have now. And so that's a front office that doesn't have great visibility for, what's happening in front of the school. You have to rely on cameras, which if you're not looking at the screen, then you're going to miss something that you might catch faster if you're just looking out the window. So those are some simple things. But really, what would you do? You would repaint, you would improve the teaching experience by putting up new teaching walls. But the classroom sizes are the sizes that we need. We have a very well-designed and functioning building with all of the facilities that we need within it. So we can fix it up, improve it, refresh it without spending $20 million or $25 million. Sure, if we spent $20 to $25 million, we would get a number of $1 million back. But is that money well spent?
So are you trying to say that, well, 3 million, there might not be a whole lot of state match?
No, there won't.
Because we're not doing the bigger projects?
There won't. But what that also does is we don't have to wait another 30 years to ask for money from the state. So if any time from, say, now to 2054, we can say, we didn't use any state money to touch this building. So, but now we've decided, everything is robotic. We don't need teachers anymore, and our food comes out of the conveyor belt. And we could then get the money to redesign for what a current reality might be in the future.
That's not an answer I expected. That's a good way to say it. Basically, it's so small, it's not going to be a match.
No, but it's also preserving that match for when we
For
might
future.
more need it more. So to
Very
speak.
strategic.
It's also a great example of when you build a good building with the right size and the right amount of money, upkeeping it and modernizing it doesn't cost you a fortune down the road.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I think that's another thing that I heard too, in connection with that, like Kevin, I sat on some meetings and was really impressed with the work that was being done by the committee. But there was a lot of conversation about, oh, well, let's, maybe take this off, and wait on that. Well, it was like, okay, well, let's wait on, let's say, Sumner High School, and let's only do part of it. Well, the reality is it has to be done at some point. There are needs there. And so waiting or kicking that can down the road is just gonna make it more expensive. It's gonna make kids, sit in leaky classrooms for that much longer. Okay, so let's put it back on the list. Well, let's take Bonnie Lake off for a little bit. Well, we've got kids in hallways and we've got kids in, these portables are taking up valuable parking spaces. Well, that's a need. So if we kick that can down, we're still gonna have to do it. And it'll be more expensive. And so every project, I feel like the community really looked at very carefully, like, can we wait on this, and not pile everything up now at once? But the reality was that everything that seemed like on that list was a need. It would have to be addressed at some point. And so that, I feel like, is kind of how the committee arrived at this recommendation from my observation.
I just have a compliment. If you guys had just given a presentation with a number, everybody's mouth would have fell to the ground in here, right? But you showed the need with it. So I heard somebody say, this is my favorite chart. I looked at that chart quite a bit. And I don't think anybody can look at the chart that lays out where our buildings are at capacity wise and not realize that we have a severe need to do things with our buildings. And that really helped me overcome a lot of the sticker shock. Nobody likes to see that sticker shock, but when they reflect back and go, well, you know what, I had the same feeling when we did the last one at $160 million. I thought that was a staggering number. Now looking back, it'd be great to have $160 million one. So it's just getting comfortable with the fact that we're a growing district. We have more households now than 8 years ago to shoulder this burden. And I agree with what Aaron said. And Kevin's daughter, nobody wants their kids going to school with a leaky roof. And sooner or later, you have to bite the bullet. And I think this presentation did a nice job saying that the time is now. We're not asking for everything, but I mean, you can look at the 4 main items that are needed, and that is the bulk of what the spending is on. You can take off even Crestwood or $3 million, but the smaller projects rounded out, there's still things that need to be done. The committee did a great job. You guys did a great job on this presentation too. And I'm still trying to digest the number. It's just who I am. I'll get over it. Just like I think most people in the community will too. And the more we talk about it and talk about the need and we acknowledge it's a big number, the better off we're all gonna be.
Did you guys have questions about the fields? Because I mean, really, now's the time to ask. The
Yeah.
summer high school field, you want to talk about that?
Well, we were just kind of talking about like getting in, but the slide said we don't want to get too far into the weeds on some of this stuff, but that was kind of some of the earlier conversations were about the plan and how the space looks good on the plan, but then when it's actually put in place, what is, kind of that going to look like with sharing, like when we get into that process, further work, if it hasn't been done, I'm sure it has been done, but here's another anecdote. My daughter does pole vault. She gets hit in the head with soccer balls all the time. So it's like you have a soccer team practicing on this field, and you have track practicing here. So having that field over there that had soccer, baseball, fast pitch, like it'd just be great to keep our eye on that as far as like bringing in the athletics department to say like, okay, what's your schedule look like for the year?
Yeah.
And how does that fit on this map? Is that
It's
kind
the
of
summer high school.
A little bit, so,
Marina, will you put that back up so they can see it?
Yeah.
my question when I look at it is on the Sumner High School site, I think it's really tight. I'm just gonna be upfront with you. I think what's up there right now is really tight. And what it doesn't take into consideration is that you have, one of the blessings of this district is lots of kids are doing lots of things. So if I'm the softball coach, there's no way in God's creation I'm gonna get varsity JV before the community descends upon me at 5 o'clock and thinks they own it. Same thing for baseball. So I've been chewing on Lori and she's been great about not giving me any hints as far as the daffodil, especially the area that we own, but also could we partner with the city and do something with that daffodil complex. Right now that I know the softball plays over there, we just spread 3 yards of infield mix yesterday and my back is speaking to me because of that. But that was literally needed because of the holes and things then where the water is building up. I'm concerned with putting everything right there that we're gonna have to exclude kids. I'm just flat out thinking so.
The Daffodil Valley Field is also.
Well, I saw that
as part of
now.
this recommendation,
Yeah.
and that would be turfing that. And I can tell you, working with Derek Berry from
Yeah.
the city of Sumner, and if you've had a chance to look at the parks and trails plan that is currently up for comment, you should look at it. So in it, there is some development of that sports complex on the city's side to turf that field and light it. And it would include, I think it included a soccer field. I know it included areas for a couple of little league or, those kinds of things. But the city has, we've always had priority on their field there. So I don't see that changing. they don't have a big infrastructure to manage that field.
No.
So, it'd be interesting to see what happens going forward. But they've expressed a great deal of desire to work with us in whatever way they can to support our needs. But I think that Daffodil Valley field ties very nicely, the fast pitch is there currently. And it'll be a very nice field with soccer once it's developed as a turf.
And, I was looking at the Bonnie Lake plans and I love it because, while those areas were meant to enhance instruction, they were never meant to have general instruction out in the hallways and the little areas and things like that. And I've had, people I would consider friends tell me that is exceptionally difficult to teach in. Probably like, I don't know, gyms we're having to use, libraries we're having to use, those
Yep.
kind of things. So I really appreciate that.
Just regarding the Sumner master plan, just because I was so intimately involved with it, part of the challenge was there was no program element anybody was willing to let go off campus. I suggested, where can I get rid of the tennis courts? There's threats of Wilson #4 being thrown in my head when I leave the room, right? What about the pool? No. So obviously, if we could get any of the program off of there or outsource it to another site, that would be extremely helpful. But that field, just again, technical, that field houses the stormwater detention system for much of the phase 2 east of the phase 1 part and the parking lot. So that has to be an open area. We can't build a building on that. So you might as well turf it. Now, it doesn't mean you go augment it with the Heath complex or
Yeah.
Daffodil, but that sort of needs to be there physically.
And I could see it. I just think, having coached in that, baseball and softball back to back is, I've never seen it work exceptionally well. I just haven't, in some kid in that. But literally right now, the community thinks that they can invade starting at 4 o'clock or whatever. And if you've got multiple teams, it's gonna come down to cutting kids. So you don't have as many of our kids participating. And some other issues with if everything's rocking on that campus at the same time. We're gonna be back to some other issues. So I really appreciated the look at the Bill Heath and then district side. So that'd be the Daffodil complex, I guess, our side.
What's great about this also is new pack, new pool, new gym, but the gym will be ADA compliant because our current gym is not at Sumner High School.
It won't have parents climbing to the top of the,
Right.
to just to find a seat.
Well, our senior citizens, I'm with them and
There's nowhere to,
right.
there's nowhere
It's-
for them.
It's hard for them, so.
Well, and just even the pack, I attended there was a performance there a couple weeks ago at the talent show. And two different points in the show, poor student was literally singing and then all the audio cut out right in the middle of their performance. And it looked terrifying, just for them to experience that, have to stop and let things reset. And so the building is beyond time to be torn down. Just a very kind of detailed question on the phase 2 building west. That goes in first,
Has to go in first.
then you move everybody over
All the general idea.
all into phase 1 and phase 2, then that allows you to tear down
Well,
or.
almost. So you move all of the, what I'll call core education into phase 1 and phase 2, including CTE. You still need to sort of do a phased construction of the rest of it because you lose, arts, music, choir, the pack, things like that. So there's a whole, and that's part of the project cost too, is because this thing is phased over so much time and there's so much jigsaw puzzle happening. It's not a straight answer. It's gonna take a lot of work. And you have to make parts of the building safe, close them off and demo that section and make sure it's still working. And there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, I've watched HGTV, so I know how that's gonna go.
You've done some work on this one.
It always goes according to plan, so.
Exactly.
But I think what Bill and I were talking about is just, we'd appreciate as we get closer to putting shovels in the ground is just to be looking at that sports complex and having some flexibility into making sure we're paying attention because.
Yeah. We used a shoehorn. I mean, and I did multiple calculations of ball trajectories and fence heights, and I mean, it took a lot of work to even get this to work, so. We're open to hearing anything. Like I said, anything you can move off campus helps.
Well, I think parents and students will be just excited to have this new type of facility with
Sure.
new technology, I mean, it's just gonna be a huge improvement over what we have right now anyway.
Yeah. Just a reminder for everybody, the idea was you got your education on the west, you know, your arts and admin in the middle, and your athletics on the east. So all the parking that supports the athletics is next to the athletics. So on those weekends when you got football games and swim meets, like everybody's got parking right there.
Could you go to the Bonnie Lake High School slide, please? So I also appreciated what you're doing, like with the front of the school and that kind of odd roundabout. It just, the efficiency to improve that, as well as these sports fields, I think are gonna get a lot of people on board, you know, with those improvements, because it's needed there as well.
Well, conceptually, I think it takes away the whole front, back front discussion.
Yeah.
So I think.
Yeah, it was very similar to the original SHS issue, which was, you know, we could try to cut into each of these wings, but then you're opening up 3 different buildings, 3 different grades and 3 different trunk lines of system. This sort of lets us do the phase 1 approach, which is build this thing outside of the school footprint, don't disturb the education. And then when you're ready, you just cut it in and use it, ready to go.
I've walked past the classes in the hallway. I can't believe that
It's unbelievable.
I can't believe they have to deal with
Yeah.
that, so.
So moving forward, is there additional information you want us to bring back? Do you want us to move forward with pricing out with Bang and Mark pressing, there's Bang, a 739 package? What do you like? What's next for you in terms of your comfort level in eventually us bringing a resolution or a recommendation that you pass a package? What do you need, Paul?
I need some kind of, or I'd like to see some kind of estimate. I know we've always shot for like $2.50 per thousand. That's been a long running kind of goal right around in that. Are we still talking about that, in that price range? And I know with the bond people, they work their magic and they try to keep that flat rate.
So you'd like to see some sort of estimate per cost per thousand?
Yeah, I think it's a big difference if we say, hey, we're gonna try to keep it around $250 per thousand versus, oh, it's gonna be, you know, a lot more.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to sell when people say, well, okay, it's gonna go from 209, which is about what it is. I think last time we saw a figure, it was around 209. And it's gonna go up to, maybe it's 220, I don't know, but maybe it goes up just a little bit, to 250. That's a lot more, I think, acceptable or tolerable for folks, than if all of a sudden they see, well, that's a big number and it's a big payment. So.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Can I piggyback onto
Yeah.
that? I think some of the things I heard at the last few committee meetings were in regard to that. The committee was very focused on not hitting the community with a big bill. And some of the more detail I think I'd like to see is how they, kind of the conceptual idea that Bang had kind of proposed and put out as far as level loading it out, because these are a lot of projects. They're not gonna be done in a week. It's gonna take a long time to do these projects, so you could then level out the purchase of the bonds and stagger them so that you maintain what you're talking about with that level loading. So that kind of putting that pen to paper on that, I think would help me too.
Yeah, I've been around long enough to see these bond people work some magic. I mean, and they did a similar thing last time when it was 160 million. And then they pay some down really fast and then they postpone the payment of others. I've come to appreciate it a lot more than I did when I first got on the school.
Yeah, what you need? So, Bill, anything from you?
No, I missed it because I really, honestly, with my friends up in Holly, would love to hear how we're gonna fix the queuing at Mountain View / Bonnie Lake. Because I mean, I'm being very honest, that can take 45 minutes to an hour on some school mornings. And if we could do some magic there, there's gonna be some happy people.
Yeah, so when we did the Mountain View site, we reconfigured the queuing, and all I'd gotten was positive feedback. And it's the first I've heard that there's still a huge problem there. So it's
We're
still-
stopped at the top of the top of the big hill.
Right, so that kind of brings us to that discussion of the intersection, which we've done a lot of studying on. A lot of the issue is you can't get traffic through. And that's what we'd have to incorporate as part of the Bonnie Lake High School expansion, which is why that dollar is set aside for potentially a roundabout or intersection signalization or expansion or whatever it's gonna take to make that intersection work now and for the future when Tahali gets bigger.
How has the city of Bonnie Lake been with that as far as the conversations about what can be done there?
Oh, they were fine. The issue there is is sort of like it goes from county to city to county. It's a weird chop up of that road. And, you know, originally that was supposed to be 4 lanes going to Tahali. That got changed for whatever reason, and that I think hurt all of us, the district, the residents, everybody. But I think the district's gonna have to make some of that right by making that intersection right size. What happens north and south of that, I don't know, you know. I know the county, we've talked to the county too, and they're like, that road is so low on our radar. We don't even, it's not even in the future plans to discuss having a future plan.
Lovely. So the intersection itself, where does that land? As far as city, county?
That'll be city,
Okay.
right, it'll be part of the.
Yeah,
It'll be,
Because when you said it's
it'll be
different.
one and the same, even though they're budgeted differently, it'll be with the high school. Like the high school will be contingent on us figuring out traffic impacts. And it might be not doing as much that intersection and changing traffic to come in off of the same road as M&O. I forget. the
one,
name.
104.
Yeah, 104. Maybe you reconfigure traffic to pull some traffic out of 198th.
Yeah, I think the county line is basically just south of the intersection. I know that jurisdiction over the water line is just past that intersection. And not quite off of the Mountain View property, but, you know, for all intents and purposes, Bonnie Lake High School, Mountain View, and the intersection would all be managed by the city of Bonnie Lake.
Well, and also when it comes time to do this project after the bond, like we're talking some time from now, right? We'll know more about how the projections of Tahali traffic compare to what the reality is at the time. I think they're gonna cut that road in, I forget where, by Victor, yeah.
by Victor Falls.
Yeah, Victor Falls. What effect does that have, you know, on projection? So there's traffic studying that needs to be done when we get to that point.
Yeah, they're already moving dirt.
I'll tell you right now, it's never gonna be perfect. The question is just, can we alleviate it to be tolerable?
And I appreciate that. I think that would be something we feel appreciative that as you looked at the Bonnie Lake High School project, that you're thinking about that intersection.
Oh, yeah, that was the first thing we thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, they're never gonna allow us to do this if we don't do something about the intersections. But then Mountain View happened and it seemed like it alleviated. Now we'll get into what's going on now.
It's just a lot of people and
Well, and it goes from
Tiny
4
little
lanes
funnel.
down to 2 lanes, and that's a big choke point.
yeah.
Because that's a lot of,
Yeah,
I
and
know
yet-
you
and yet
peel
lights-
off some at 120th and you peel off some at Rhodes Lake, but not enough.
I actually think that, because I watch it from my house, they're cutting that road in down to 162. They're already starting, so I think that's gonna alleviate a lot of pressure.
I hope so.
And Falling Waters is doing an intersection at Falling Water Boulevard and Rhodes Lake.
Yeah, and then there are gonna be roundabouts on 162 that'll help funnel those people off out of Tahali north on 162.
That's already a crowded road,
It is, yeah.
so.
So Lori, for me, I appreciate what Paul said, you know, some projection of that. So much of this, I mean, the committee did such a great job and having some knowledge of the district and the different things, I think a little bit of a head start, but for me, I think that, and then maybe as you develop more of what that oversight committee, was wondering about having Penny even possibly help kick that
Penny, you're never leaving us. You're
No,
stuck with us forever.
I know the wonderful work she does.
Do you know how
It'd be
long
great
that
to get a
bond's
good
gonna
start.
be?
That's a lot of fly
You
fishing.
love working with Penny.
True. I don't think we can say enough good things about this team, the
Mm-mm.
facilitators and the experts and the community members. It's been a year of some really hard work, and I know that even on their own time, they put in a lot of work of reading and studying the material so that they'd be prepared for conversations at the meeting. So we all benefit from their hard work. So thank you again. Appreciate it very much.
Well, and Aaron's not kidding. I mean, Neil would come with like spreadsheets and James is over there trying to keep up with all the notes. And I mean, seriously, thank you both for.
Yeah, we met in Costco, right?
Oh, yeah, we did.
Started talking.
We had- Yes, by like the cold meat section or something. I'm like, hey, well, I have you for a few minutes. But seriously, thank you to everyone that participated, Kelly and, I mean, everyone, great work. And like you said, Aaron, great team right there. Matt's been here from the very, very beginning. I mean, you are really the phase one sort of
Thank you.
brain behind that whole building and,
It makes it easy for us. I mean, we don't have a ton of questions because
Yeah.
they did such great work to set this up and
yeah.
make it easy to understand, so.
I gotta tell you, I'm gonna be so jealous of people at Sumner High School when that sucker's done.
So a lot of, we still have some critical decisions to make at some point, but tonight was just a first glance and a first look at the overall recommendation, what information you need moving forward. We'll bring that back to you. And then we're gonna task you with some other tough questions of if you decide to run a bond package, when. So there's still some decisions that need to be made. Okay, all right, good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any board discussion this evening? Anything on your minds?
Just carpool.
There you go, Paul, you got it in.
Noted.
Everybody deep breath and make it through Friday, is it? Because I've heard rumor that each day has seemed like a week getting to spring break.
This week especially.
Some of us have another week.
Yeah, you had that midwinter one. Yeah.
All right, no discussion, Kevin, you were thinking,
No, I think I'm good.
all right, well, thank you again. At this time, we're gonna move into executive session for the purpose of evaluating qualifications of an applicant for public employment. We do